Hello and welcome everyone. Today we have an easy lesson of two parts. The first part is about comparatives and the second part is about superlatives. This lesson will help you to make very meaningful sentences to compare between people or things. So let's start with the first part about comparatives. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to, number one, identify comparative adjectives. Number two, form comparative adjectives. And number three, compare things using as plus adjective plus as. So let's see the questions. In our lesson, we are going to answer the following questions. Question number one, when do we use comparative adjectives? Number two, how to form comparative adjectives, regular and irregular. Number three, when do we use as plus adjective plus as? So let's start with the first question. When do we use comparative adjectives? In fact, we use comparative adjectives to compare between two people or two things. Examples, this car is certainly better. Here, I'm comparing this car with other car. Number two, I'm feeling happier now. Concentrate that when you compare two people or two things, you use the word than. Example, she is 2 years older than me. Here, I'm comparing between me and you. So we are two people, so I used than. Number two, Hebron is much bigger than Ramallah. I compare between Ramallah and Hebron. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, now, how to form comparative adjectives? You have to know that we have regular comparative adjectives and irregular comparative adjectives. Let's start with the first one, the regular comparative adjectives. In order to form this form depend on the number of the syllable in the original adjective, like big, short, tall, whatever. Let's see. Let's start with one syllable adjectives. Like what? Like big, like tall. Let's see. If you have big or tall and I want to compare between two people or two things, what should I add? Yes, I should add ER for the comparatives at the end of the adjective. And if the adjective has a consonant plus a vowel plus another consonant, you have to double the last letter before adding ER. Let's study those examples. Here I have many different adjectives. Let's look at them. Tall here, it's one syllable adjective. So what should I add to compare between two people or two things? I should add ER. So it becomes taller. Fat, in fat, I have a consonant, then a vowel, then another consonant. So before adding ER, I have to double the last letter. So I have fatter, double T, then I add ER. Big is the same thing as fat. I have a vowel in the middle, which is I. So I double the last letter before adding ED. The same thing is sad. Before adding ER, I have to double the last letter. Now, let's see what should I add if I have a two-syllable adjectives. If you have a two-syllable adjectives, you have two choices. Either adding ER at the end or more. Both are correct, but you have to know that one way is more common than the other. It's more common for us. Let's see. For adjective, but I want to pay your attention that if any adjective ending with I, you have to delete the Y, then add I before adding ER. Let's see some examples. So now, let's study the following examples. I have an adjective here, happy. Happy ends with Y. If I want to compare between two people or two things using happy, it becomes happier. What did I do? I delete the Y, then I add ER. The same here, busy, it becomes busier. Okay, now let's study adjectives with 3 or more syllables. If you have adjectives with 3 or more syllables, you have to add more before the adjective when you compare between two people or two things. Let's study the following examples. I have important here. If I pronounce important, it will become more than 2 syllables. Okay, so when I compare it between two people or two things, I will add more. So it becomes more important than. Another example here is expensive. It becomes more expensive than. Okay? Here we will talk about irregular comparative adjectives. Here I will start with good. If you have the word good, you will not add ER, you will not add more, because comparative adjective for good becomes better. And as a superlative, it will become the best. Bad, it will become worse, and then as a superlative, the worst. Little, less and least. Much, more, and the most. Far, farther than, and then the farthest. So, to conclude, you have to know that if you want to compare two people or two things, you have many other choices. The first choice is to add ER for 1-syllable adjectives. Then, if you have more than 3-syllable adjectives, you will add more. And here you have to memorize the comparative adjectives for those irregular adjectives. Did you understand? I think yes. So here we have another thing to comparing. If I want to compare two things that they are equal in a same way, what should I use? I can't say taller for two boys that they are at the same tall. So what should I use? I can use this. I can use as plus the given adjective plus as. Let's see an example here. The weather this summer is as bad as last year. It hasn't stopped raining for weeks. So I'm comparing the weather this year and last year, and for me, they are at the same level. They are bad. So I use as plus bad plus as. I didn't add anything to the given adjective. I put it as it is. Okay? Okay, I have a question here. If they are not equal, what can I use? Okay, if they are not equal, you can use this. Not as plus the adjective plus as. Let's see an example. This box is not as heavy as I thought. Rami hasn't grown as tall as Tamer yet, so they are not equal. Okay? So, at the end, you have to examine yourself. This is the worksheet you have to do after you are done of this lesson. Let's start with the first question. Please concentrate. Complete the sentences below using the comparative adjectives. Number 1, Jamil's car isn't very fast. He wants a 1. Okay, where's the adjective here? It's fast. And if I am comparing two people or two things of 1-syllable adjective, what should I do? Yes, I can hear you. Yes, you add ER. So it becomes faster. Okay, correct. Number 2, my job isn't very interesting. I want to do something. Okay, let's look at interesting. Is it one syllable, adjective, or two syllables or more? Interesting. So it's more than three syllables. I have to add more, then write the adjective as it is. So it becomes, I want to do something more interesting. Let's continue. Number 3, the weather isn't very warm today. Yesterday it was. Number 4, people aren't very polite today. In the past they were. Number 5, this sofa isn't very comfortable. That one is. Number 6, the coat is nice, but I think the other one is. Let's continue. In this question, you will fill in the gaps with the comparative form of the adjectives given. The adjectives are between brackets here. Number 1, a rock is than a leaf, heavy. Number 2, our house is than yours, big. Number 3, the princess is than the witch, beautiful. Number 4, Lena is student than Mary, good. Be careful, good is irregular adjective, so be careful while you are doing it. Number 5, bicycles are than motorbikes, safe. Number 6, July is than January, hot. Be careful that you have a vowel in the middle before the last consonant. What should you do? Number 7, a lion is than a cat, dangerous. Number 8, Hashim is than Maisa, happy. Be careful, happy ends with Y. What should you do before adding ER? Remember. Number 9, computers are than telephones, expensive. Number 10, I think golf is than football, boring. This is all for today. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Remember here, failure is not an option. So work hard to do those exercises, and if you find any problem, please watch the video again.